Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, formerly known as Trinity Awakens Naturally. We're now rebranding and going to Firehorse Academy. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to bring up something that happened yesterday that has always really puzzled me about human psychology, and it's the exact difference in opinion that I have about human psychology. It's the human psychology that drives the conversation to begin with. Okay, so I work in mental health. I'm a spiritualist, but I work in mental health. So I'm bridging heaven and earth through the spiritual lens. However, if we're going to work with the human psyche, we probably should know something about the human psyche if we're going to help people to deal with and there's a hawk and a deer. Wow, that's amazing. I won't bother to try to turn the camera around because it doesn't usually film well through the camera, or excuse me, through the window. But there are two deer. They've never been that close, and there's a hawk right on the light post right outside my window. And that hawk does visit pretty frequently, except not that close, and hawks are messengers and the deer. So anyway, what a beautiful gift. That's really cool. Yeah, that's significant. So anyway, one of the things that just really amuses me is that we're going to try to, as healers, especially spiritual people, I find that this happens a lot, spiritualists, and I don't mean to be a hater, it is the predominant theme that I see out of all of them, is that spiritualists sometimes are healers that are in the spiritual community calling themselves healers and have a healing gift, and they do. They really want to just bypass human psychology and get straight to the healing, and yet they're talking about bringing up people's traumas, bringing up their dark shadow, let's dance with that thing, etc. Let's do all of these things that's going to dredge up, the blockages in your life and why you can't move forward. Those things that are blocking us need intervention of someone who knows what they're dealing with. And when you try to bypass the human psyche, you're trying to bypass the security system of some, Fort Knox type operation that you have no idea what the security system is, much less how to hack it or to get in safely and actually do anything that you think you're doing, because it's highly defended. What's inside that Fort Knox is a vault full of very personal, 234 just passed, very personal, vital, got to protect it. That's our self-identity. The ego is the defense mechanism, and Fort Knox is our zhuzh inside. It's us. It's our most vulnerable, pure expression of us. And the security system that we have, that we erect, that we design specifically for us, those pattern out. Those security systems, they pattern out in human psychology in very predictable ways that are archetypes. And when I'm talking to a mental health professional or a spiritualist or a healing practitioner of some kind, and they want to just talk to me about how we're just going to heal, we're going to send love, light, joy, and healing energy and do Reiki, and just, everything's going to be healed. No, it's not, because you're asking to stand outside the gates of Fort Knox and sweet talk your way in with some really great stuff. This is awesome looking stuff I have here, and Fort Knox may reach out and take that resource and go, cool, I really appreciate that. That's really awesome. However, it's not moving material inside to become more visible to the outside, because that security system, if we have no idea what security systems function like, or their basic nature, or what they do, as in the defense mechanisms and all the masks and the archetypes and the ego responses that we have as human beings, quite literally very, very archetypal, predictable, and you see the pattern walking around everywhere. You see it within yourself if you're looking. When we try to show up and we have no idea that there's a security system on Fort Knox, you didn't really believe you were going to walk up there and just go check on the gold inventory right quick with Elon. That's not going to happen. Even if you say it and make the grand gesture, it's going to remain right where it is in a state of not happening, because Fort Knox, we already know we have our defense mechanisms up, early and deep, wide, and far of what we're looking out for on that, spectrum of, okay, what's a predator? What's a predator? We're well skilled on that and well honed on that. And so our defense mechanisms reach out. Fort Knox is always on the radar. And so our defense mechanism is always looking for the predator, the danger, etc. That's just, the nature of animals that understand their survival, and their survivability is based on being able to identify threat. And so we have threat level midnight capability always, nuclear, let's go, and it's on the ready. That defense mechanism, it's well honed, though, if we have good reason that somebody stood at the door of our Fort Knox and tried to burst in and tried to, just knock the door down and come in, or they successfully did before we could fortify ourselves, before we got to the point that we had, assassins on every doorway, etc. Then they make the rush and they come in and they take our stuff, and we learn how to defend ourselves as Fort Knox, because we don't wish to experience that again. And so when I have a mental health professional tell me they don't want to hear anything about internal family systems, they don't want to hear anything about toxic dynamics, they don't want to hear anything about codependency, or, the need for support teams, women to supporting women and men supporting men, having like-minded people with similar struggles getting together to help support, it turns into all these divisive things. And, what I really want to scream to people sometimes is, do you understand that you are talking about getting into Fort Knox? You have no idea there's a security system. You don't even understand that the need for the security system is already in place and established based on, this is Fort Knox. There's valuable stuff in here, and we're going to be protecting this at the highest level of anything that we are going to protect. And so when we don't understand that, we don't study security systems. We have no interest in the updates of security that's happened. My goodness, there's a lot more action happening on that with the hawk. Now that's really strange. There's a hawk, and then there's like a magpie that's sitting right next to it. That's really weird. I've never seen a hawk and a magpie occupy the same space. That doesn't seem to me. I mean, I don't know that the hawk is a predator of the magpie. The magpie might be there to just harass it. I don't know. It seems like it's trying to get its attention, and the hawk's just sitting there like, yeah, bro, whatever. That's Fort Knox holding its own and looking at the threat, looking at the danger and going, whatever. However, I can assure you that if I sat here long enough, that hawk gets really perturbed and its defense mechanism or its predator drive gets kicked in, the fight or flight kicks in, and it decides to go ahead and answer up with, I'm done now, and it takes that little magpie out. The magpie might be wondering, oh shit, what happened? How did I miss the signs? Now I have no idea that's what's happening in front of me for real. However, that's what it ends up being, is that we go and we start, some stuff on some Fort Knox lawns, and people get real cagey, and we're trying to work around systems that, this is a defense mechanism that's well honed and well skilled, and you don't have any idea how to hack that system, because you don't even understand that there is one, that there are different types, and that you could be well schooled and well briefed on this, but you're trying to come over here with, a technique for healing and everything. You're trying to do you're trying to do the work that would be done on the inside to get you there, to break the code, to get in, to do the work. There needs to be a way to break through the defense mechanism to make that Reiki and the healing energy, the energy work, the ancestral work, the grid work, the ley lines, whatever work you do, the timelines, whatever work you do, you're just sending all of it to the door of Fort Knox, falling on, the footsteps of it, and some of it scooped up perhaps and utilized. However, it's not actually making it to the most targeted areas it could, because the defense mechanism is a gatekeeper. Unless we're talking about those defense mechanisms and what's really getting in your way, what is this blockage really about? Why would you be having chronic pain right here? Why do we have this medical issue? What is it about, this particular situation that's clogging you up, and you haven't had a promotion in 22 years, and you're sitting around in stagnation wondering why? Let's figure it out. We're not going to do a healing session at least not in my practice, we're not going to do a healing session without talking about the human psychology, the psychiatry of what it is that's happened in your world, to discuss how you arrived at the decision making. Because somebody that's sitting in that kind of stasis, there's a defense mechanism that's stuck. There's a defense mechanism, a mask, and a hard set pattern that can be researched, found, and absolutely studied and brought out for review and analysis and a treatment protocol. If we take a look at that together and say, this is, kind of the patterns that's setting itself up here, it looks to me like, this is patterning in. There goes that hawk. That is absolutely fascinating. What a wonderful gift. Thank you, hawk. Usually the hawk is over there and across the street up on the hill. And today it's literally right there on the sidewalk in that post. So, wow, it's a gift either way. So anyway, what I'm trying to do is rather than try to bypass and just get to the spiritual side and say, let's get to that zhuzhi part that just feels really good. I'm speaking to that part all the time, that little zhuzhi part. All of our parts inside, we hear. All parts of us hear everything. Whether or not it's repressed is irrelevant. All parts hear. That's what the subconscious is about. The subconscious is taking in everything, while the conscious part of our brain, 1111, is the part that's actually spitting out what we took in and could process appropriately. And most of us hung up somewhere, in trauma decades ago. And we need to bring that out. We need to bring out that subconscious part and speak to it, because the subconscious part, that's the security system. And there's, archetypes in Western psychology, Carl Jung, behavioral science. There's all kinds of evidence over here in human studies and human psychology, human psychiatry, the DSM. You can find all of the things. It's that I don't want to stop and get hung up in those books and then, be bothered with, oh my goodness, and pathologizing. No, however, I'm going to look at the archetypes, see the patterns, recognize what all these signs and symptoms are, and then be able to understand that I'm not going to sit somebody down on my healing table, do some fascial work or somatic work without having to really need to pony up some information inside of me, 1212, about what's the archetype I see. How can I actually best help this person? Because a feel-good session, it feels good, 1221, and that's it. A feel-good session merely feels good. I'm not interested, me personally, when I'm there with my sad bag full and I need some help to unask my life. I wasn't looking to have a feel-good session, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I still am not. I'm looking to change what it is that I'm in stasis with. I'm looking to get out of the stagnation I'm in. I'm looking to actually get help. Help sometimes, hurts in terms of the truth, which is, Kate, you don't need a feel-good session. You need to be brought up to speed on your toxic behaviors and your archetypal patterns that are broken, codependent, and don't work, and are asking other archetypal patterns that are equally as broken and don't work to play with you and expect that to be healthy and fun and vitally alive and supporting you. It's not. That's a DOA on its way constantly nowhere, because there's nothing in those archetypes supportive of the full integration of every archetype into one complete human being that's balanced in their masculine and their feminine traits. That's really what this is all about. It doesn't matter what journey you take, and it doesn't 1331 or how you get there. However, if we try to bypass the human psychology of it, I haven't seen a spiritualist yet, a healer yet, or anybody that is an atheist yet that turns to the spiritual aspects that didn't have to go through the archetypes, the human psychology, the subconscious. All of the things that are getting in our way are in a security system that if you're not willing to look at the security system, if you don't even know the system or want to believe that it exists, how exactly do you suppose you're going to hack it? You're just going to get there and work your magic? That is not how energy work happens, not in my experience. And just logically, why would it? That fundamentally we're here to learn how to be sovereign beings. What kind of sense would it make if I could use my sovereignty to release you from your imprisonment, that the key is on the inside of your prison? And if I simply come and, come put my hand in there and open that up and let you out. Does that seem like an authorized maneuver? No, it doesn't. And it doesn't happen. We do not unlock somebody else's prison for them. We can, in fact, walk up and say, you know that the key is right there. And that's what getting into the subconscious is about, and using human psychology to do so. I like Caroline Myss because she is a psychology background. I do believe she has a huge therapeutic background. She might have a doctorate, I'm not exactly sure. However, she's been around for a million years, and she understands the archetypes and puts them through that spiritual journey. And so there's a better understanding of how to work with those archetypes within the shadow journey, etc., and the integration and reintegration of all that process. However, we can't just bypass it. Carl Jung had archetypes. He talked about empaths. He talked about the runner chaser paradigm, the narcissist empath dynamic. And so if we're bypassing all of that and just trying to get to our retreats in the Caribbean to feel good and, have sound baths, that's temporary. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's a great vacation. Well, I'm really looking for my vacation experience to be the quality of my life every single day. Whether I'm sitting on the beach drinking my mojito or not, it's okay if I have that, lifestyle of being that relaxed and okay with my life. Even if I'm working hard, even if I'm, doing a lot of things all at one time, I can still be carrying my beach vibe and I'm totally cool and chill with my life vibe. And I need to be, otherwise I'm only experiencing the best joy of me when I'm on vacation. I want my lifestyle to be that vacation feel no matter where it is. And I only do that if I heal. And I only heal if I'm willing to look around my life at why is it that I have a separation between going to the Caribbean for a feel good and my everyday life. How is it that I haven't found a way for my everyday life to be gorgeous and wonderful, experientially having a great time, no matter where I am, whether I'm on vacation or not? Why is there a difference in the quality of my life when I'm on vacation, in a sound bath, in my Reiki session, in my whatever I'm in? Because it feels much better to do that than it does to grunge out for a while, do the hard work for the amount of time that it takes to feel the feels, because every day being paradise isn't realistic. However, it already isn't. So to say that we're going to reach paradise by going and visiting every once in a while and never reaching the hell that's the opposite end of paradise, the way you get to paradise is by getting the contrast and understand what paradise is. And I like to label paradise more than once a year on vacation with my ass on a beach and my toes in the sand and all that. I like that to be more like, happening way more regularly. And so getting into the trenches with myself on that subconscious stuff, every time something's coming up, then I'm separated from my vacation mentality and my vacation ability to mojito for a moment and go, oh, let me find the chill vibe of me on this. That's my psychology to understand. How am I going to hack that system if I haven't even understood that there is a system, or that I need to, if I'm just going to walk up and sweet talk the security system in Fort Knox and tell it, well, I left you some feel goods here in a giant basket. I hope that you enjoy that, and that somehow will release all the goods that are deep within you. Good luck with that. Okay, well, you might leave the basket of feel goods, and whatever lives inside will come and suck the surface level of it off. However, it's still a sound bath, and you go home and the reverberation of every vibration that you ever felt will be a lost memory, because it's not a sustained practice. We need to be in sustained practice with ourselves, with our own psychology, with our own subconscious, and dancing with that psychology in whatever way it is that answers the need for us the best. If we need rage therapy, if we need DMT, if we need microdosing, if we need, I don't know, an anger coach, if we need to work out 1,000 times a day, if we need to cry, if we need to go on a trek up a mountain for 16 days, in solitude, whatever the journey is, it's ours. And the more that we really get okay with answering the need of that call of the wild and really not try to bypass it with going to spiritualists who are going to tell us the story because they're busy running with me and you. We're running all the way in the wrong direction. That the best thing to do is to meet yourself where you are every single day. And the days that it's not really going so well, be prepared to have a seat, sit down, and maybe it's not going to feel like vacation. It might feel, quite the opposite of the worst vacation you've ever had. However, in order to get the best vacation you've ever had, the vacation lifestyle, and to wake up every day with a mojito and your ass in the sand, simultaneously, no matter where you are, that requires the stamina, the strength, the work, and the dark night journey to do it. There's nobody that's going to get to a state of enlightenment without earning it. And the way that we earn it is the same way that you would expect a marathon runner to finish a race in a timely manner. There's here in Colorado Springs, there's a place called Manitou Incline. The Incline, it's a straight up, stair step, literally built to the side of Pikes Peak, part of Pikes Peak, not the highest peak in Colorado. I think it's the second. It's pretty tall. So anyway, that incline, there are people who train to be able to just do that incline. There are people who train on the incline when they're working on their Olympic, specialty. There are people who come and they use that incline. I personally, the way I trained with the incline was to go to it and say, oh, wow, I see that all of my defense mechanisms in me, Fort Knox just got very busy with, stay the hell away from me. However, that's what it would take if I was looking to realistically be on my journey. I would need to look at that and understand that my spiritual journey needs to be looked at much like this Manitou Incline, that there are steps here, 2112, they're manageable. And if I only one day, I can stop and look at it and understand and know that my goal is to get to the top of that, I'm training for that. I'm going to have to build the endurance to get here even. Remember, some people train just to get here to this point, to look at it. Some people are training all the way up and down the steps because they already did that part of it for their journey to be here. So we're all in different places doing different things, and why it's critically important to understand our own psychology and know where you are on that journey, that you're not going to feel bad if you show up at the steps of the incline and go, yeah, that's I'm just looking at that and realizing that that's not really for me. And yet I understand that in order for me to make that journey, and I know that that's what I need to do, I'm going to need to train that, and to ignore that or pretend like I don't have a vital need to understand what are the requirements of climbing up these steps to the top of this incline. What is it going to actually take for me to do this, be successful, and not hurt myself, not injure myself or hurt anybody else as we're on this, straight up climb, because lots of other people use the same, trajectory to get to the top of their mountain. And so everybody struggles up that incline, just standing there looking at it the one day. Every single person that was going up it was having their own individual experience of it. You had some people that were just doop, 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 doop from the bottom, going up into it where I couldn't see them anymore, lickety split. Those are people obviously very familiar with the process, and they do that shit on the regular. So, okay, they're going to be able to do that. However, there were people like me that stood there and went, yeah, it took me all, an hour just to park my car and walk up here to take a look. That's how much apprehension I felt about this journey. However, that was what was real and really real about it. And it didn't change the facts that the people that were there to walk up that mountain, walk up those steps, whether they intended to be there or not, I didn't intend to walk or not to walk. I just intended to show up. So people like me, I could have walked in and said, oh my God, no way, I refuse to, I won't. And then walk away from that incline, telling myself some story about how I never wanted it, and then spend the rest of my life trying to climb up little mini hills somewhere else and conquer them, and, do silly stuff by taking over entire, inclines that don't belong to me, or knocking people out of the way because I am not able to do the one that I really want to do. That's all the deep psychology of why we would do that, how we would get there, and how we could, turn that psychology around, and all of this subconscious wounding and patterning. We can change that. However, we're never going to know what the technique to get up Manitou Incline is if we're never standing there, or we're never answering the call of the wild to know that there's an incline that I need to climb somewhere. I need to find it. And when I stand there and go, no, I don't think so. I'm not really interested in that. That looks too difficult. Well, we're missing the opportunity to get to the incline that would really, meet our heart's desire the best. And no other incline that we take, no other hill that we conquer will ever meet that same feeling of accomplishment and wow, I did what it took, the self-drive. Because if we can easily conquer a mountain, there isn't really any technique in that. That's brutality and pirating, and it's a done story. It's already been completed. The self journey, though, has not. That's the one unique story on this planet that has never been told before, yet we keep retelling the same boring shit that we've heard 1,000 times. Please go stand at the bottom of an incline somewhere and write a different story that's way more interesting, because the one that's yours, it already is. It's specific to you, and it's way more fascinating than the boring ass hill takeovers that we're seeing every single day. Thank you very much. I hope that this is helpful for you in some way, and I hope that you're able to enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get within your skin, because you're divine. It's absolutely gorgeous and absolutely fine. And if you're standing at the bottom of an incline thinking about your spiritual journey and wondering how in the world, I wonder, it's only really a matter of understanding what are the techniques to build the stamina for me personally. And there are some very specific things that we do when we physically train. There's some very specific things that we can do that will enhance our performance and make it a safer journey and a much faster and enjoyable and pleasant journey if we go into the spiritual understanding with the same information, that there are some tools and some ways to do this safely and in a way that isn't quite as painful. Training can be painful, however, it doesn't have to cause severe injury and permanent loss with injuries like that. So going into our incline experiences and understanding the subconscious has to be dealt with. We may not bypass it. You don't get to the top of the incline by trying to sidewind. There is literally no other way you're going to get up that incline without understanding what it would take physically for your body to get your ass from the bottom to the top. And if you're not physically conditioned to do that, there's only a few different ways that the physical body will carry itself up that particular incline. And it's a deep understanding of sports psychology, at least, a minimal understanding of the deep psychology or deep practice of sports psychology to get there and to overcome that, and sports medicine to deal with the physicality of how you're going to move all that simultaneously. It's not, a mystery. There's no, magic in that. And there's really not nearly as much magical, mysterious, wonder in the spiritual journey. There's a lot of things that are hard science, and, even the soft science, there's a lot that can give us information to fill in blanks that we're just filling in arbitrarily with patterning that doesn't serve us. So anyway, hope that's helpful. As I said, take care of yourself and enjoy your day, and I'll see you again next time, friends. Bye.